Player character controller. Let's see here. Okay, try testing it really quick. Try moving. No, okay. Maybe you need to start. Select the item. I don't know why it's not. Yeah, okay. So then drag the, so go here. Actually, yeah, so go here. Scroll all the way down to the animator. And then just like drop the character animator. It says like set to nothing. Go to just click none. Okay. And then scroll down more. Where you'll find the animator. Turn out just delete that. Remove component. So then you're gonna open this up. Click open from there. Get the animation right there, and then drag it onto the player with character controller. And then just start it over again. So click on that again. Okay. Animation. Animator, so on that. Yep. Yeah, you just put, that's the, well, it's insane.
It's like a little bit of the character.
Oh, yeah. Scroll down. You didn't put the end, hold on. Yeah, so like put this in, put it back in there. I'm just like testing it. No, just put the drag the mix amount from the idle up to there. Yep. Okay, now it has something to identify with, so scroll back up again. Character animator, now it should appear with the character controller. Let's see. Is there an exit time for the clock animation?
I wouldn't think so, cause I haven't.
Oh. Did you just reset, did you just reselect it? Okay, so now it's set, reset. What you're gonna do now is drag the, just scroll down again.
Do I have to redrag all this bullshit?
Yes.
I didn't even, I clicked, I literally left clicked and everything disappeared.
Yeah, so now it's reset. So that's the idle, so just an idle.
That's gross. Listen, rename it. I'm not gonna do any more bullshit until I can confirm that something works. Nothing.
that just one model? Or is it just multiple pieces? Like,
I think this is just one thing.
okay, that's probably the issue where, yeah, no, these are completely different meshes. Because this animation is completely separated from like with a bunch of different moving parts that isn't just one whole mesh,
But
you have to redo the mix them out.
but even then, shouldn't this idle work then? Because it's not different. This is its own thing, and the animation wasn't working, but the animation is still not working on the idle one.
It's weird.
I guess I can go back in the mix and I'll try to save it on.
They don't put it. Yeah, don't say it. Because changes we made didn't have an impact.
That's not even why. That's not. I don't even remember what I made this, because it doesn't let you do a school account for some godforsaken reason. It said, we don't support school accounts for this type of Adobe program, so you have to make a new one.
Do you have your, are you signed into your personal Gmail and your school Gmail?
This is a issue I've had forever. It's not really a huge deal, I just have 2 Adobe accounts now.
Right, because you made one personally, right?
No, I had to make one to access Pixelmon. Because when I logged in with the Maricopa one, it was like, we don't support school accounts for this type of Adobe program. So I had to make a whole new account.
Yeah, I'm going to be all logged in here. There's a way to reset. So if you know, I was here at the very first thing, log in. Then to reset the Maricopa thing, gosh, do I remember this? Instead of putting your MEID, just put at maricopa.edu. Then continue. Nope, not there. You have to press this first. Right, so when you press that button, does your stuff show up here or no?
Yeah, it just says that that account with Maricopa isn't supported for
The,
Pixelmon.
the one that's like in this format, right?
Yeah. It's not a huge deal, I just made a different account. It's just like kind of frustrating because now I have 2 Adobe accounts.
Is this the set at Maricopa? Not caps lock. Oh my gosh, not caps lock. I mean, over the summer I had a thing with mine, but then it resolved. Yeah, it's so untroubleshootable sometimes, because when it works, and then when it doesn't, it's like really hard to figure out why it's not even working. All right, everybody there on the live stream, give me a thumbs up that you can hear me. Let's do some audio stuff so that everyone, we have a review of this, because we did some audio before, but now just to be clear about it as well. So I got this fully, remember, using copyright music in it just means that when you post it online, you might get a takedown. So my standing recommendations, if you look for Adobe Audition sound effects, it takes you right to this page with a lot there's a lot here, certainly in terms of sound effects and ambience. And then also with your school YouTube account, Over here, you got to sign into your YouTube Studio, this one, and then on the far left, you have Audio Library. And so there's a lot of stuff here to consider. There's some other YouTube safe open source, or not open source, copyright free music sites that you could use, or if you have, because it's in the program now. Also, don't forget your music. Some of you may have that anyway, but then also things that you made in Electronic Music 1, which is what? MUS 181? Whatever it is. That one, maybe that's something you could use, because that would clearly not be an issue, as long as it's not like, yeah, that would not be an issue. So, one of the things with sound effects is they often sound delayed. If we look at the Foley one here, let's open it up. I'm going to organize it according to length to find something shorter. So right click up here and go to length. And then we have super short things here. How about Pringles can open? I'm going to right click and open that in Adobe Audition. There we go. So one of the most common issues here is that there's too much room here. If you're using this in Premiere or After Effects, you can just slide it left and right on the timeline to make sure the Pringles can sound coincides with the opening of the Pringles can. But in the game, usually having too much space here at the beginning can be problematic. This one's pretty short. Let's get something a little bit longer. There we go. Yeah, this one's great. The sound effect when you add money to your collection manager. This would be good. But there's a big delay here between this and that. Fortunately, this is pretty easy. We can just highlight this part of it and delete. And now, while something plays quickly, the sound is delayed from me going out over the stream because there's a bunch of audio stuff going on. So you should be much simpler. The other thing to keep in mind here, you don't want to have a whole bunch of tail time either. So if we don't need this stuff at the end, we can sort of delete that. And so this would be ready for export. Export settings that I would write down would be, for most of our sound effects, mono and 48,000 hertz. You also see that listed as 48,000 hertz and 16-bit for bit depth. So if we export this right now, this sound effect is stereo. Mono is fine for us. So if we go into File, Export File, down here, we keep it as a wave, and we want to 48, 16, and can we change it? Can you turn that off? Like, seriously? Yeah, you with the phone. That's out loud. If you want to watch it, that's fine. Just do it somewhere else. It's cool. The stereo. So in here, we have wave. Let's convert it. From stereo to mono, 16-bit, everything else is good. There we go. And let's put this in a different folder over here. These are also super long. So coin SFX. Everything else good? Mono, 16-bit, 48. Looks good. Cool. And very, very little time up there, so it'll play right away. So that's good. The file formats here for sound effects, wave with the previously mentioned parameters. For music, music would be okay as MP3. Ambience would also be cool as MP3. Why the difference here when Unity will play them both back is because these are compressed formats here and here. This is an uncompressed format. And so here you're giving up, you're asking the computer to do more work in order to store less information, which is okay when you're doing sort of a longer thing because you're not going to be hitting play as often. Here, you're going to end up with a larger file that's easier to play back quickly. So these are typically quick, and these are typically long. So let's have that one. Let's look at one more sound effect here that we might want to use. Find something. Metal Creek. Well, let's do something long that we have to cut down. Leather coat, wood rattle, earthquake. Let's see that. Open up with Audition. Cool. All right. So, yeah, we can do a couple different things here. Let's say we just want this part. So I'll grab this and delete this part. I'll grab this and delete this part. But now, this won't have a sharp entrance. Let's say that this happens, maybe this gets layered when we I don't know, drop something. So in this case, we might want to have this fade in and fade out. Audition makes this easier under views, favorites. Let's go to fade in, and you see what that does there. There we go. And then over here, if we grab the end, we can fade out. So views, favorites, fade out. And then we can do our same thing. File, save as. Over here, let's put it in the right folder. This is Rumble. Save. Change to mono. Okay, all of that's good. Good. The other thing we could do here is possibly add some reverberation if you wanted this to be more like it's in a room. You might need a little bit of room here at the end in terms of time. So put the playhead at the end, go to edit. We need to insert silence. Yeah, that should be seconds. Yeah, that gives us a lot more time. And so now, under our, if we grab everything, Control A, effects or favorites, and we'll go to effects, reverb. Even if you don't know anything about these effects, there's a lot of presets that are usable. So I'm just going to go to reverb. And then under up here, we have some things, right? So let's go to ethereal. And if you hit play, you see that gives us enough of a tail there. Cool. And so if we apply that, Now we have some reverb in the sound. You see how we have this longer tail. It doesn't need to be this long, so adding that full 10 seconds is probably not necessary. We can delete this tail, come to the end here, and again, fade out. Now we have something that's kind of reverby. There is some reverb in Unity as well, but let's leave that as is for now. Let's export this one, file, save as, Rumble, verb, and okay. And that's good. Let's come in here and look at this. Go into my student files, make a new folder here for audio. And bring in some things. And in here, let's bring in the stuff that we're just working on. I think it's all in the same folder. Under audio. So grab, oh yeah, beware of this. When you save a Adobe Audition file, it makes this Adobe Audition project, right? This is not the audio. You need the WAV file. So I'm gonna grab this and this. I'm gonna grab this piece of music, bring those in the hard way. Assets, import new assets. Here, and here, here, and here. Yeah, if you do the import window, it doesn't even show that to you, which is good. Then those are all, let's put them in the folder that we wanted. There we go. Good, and let's look at the ambience ones. So in the ambience folder here, double click. Yeah. Trying to think about some of your different zones here. Turn this down so we don't blow our ears out. Some sort of machine. What if we wanted to layer some things on top of each other? Let's go to multi-track, and I'm going to put this on the correct folder. And then over here, so here's a machine. Here's a machine. What is this one? Does a space bar work here? No. Factory fan. And some other machine. There we go. Great, so we have 3 tracks here. If I were to play all these at once. If I want to hear them together, or sorry, they're all playing together, you can solo them. So there's that one. There's this one. And there's this one. So we can adjust our levels a little bit here with our levels here. And so for instance, say we want more of these two but less of this one, we can dial this one down a little bit. Turn that off, that solo. Your plus and minus keys zoom you in and out here, like so, just like After Effects. A little bit more of this one. Just being careful we don't go into the red. Okay, that's a long fade out here. If we took this and sort of made this a little bit less, I might edit it after we bounce it out. So we've got 3 different audio tracks. We want to combine them. So we need to, essentially render. This would be the metaphor, but over here we are going to mix down entire session, and again here this is going to be the ambience, so not wave because the wave will be big. We want to turn it into an MP3. We want to keep this one stereo. We can keep it at 16, and we can rename this as layered ambience right here. And all of that looks good. Let's say okay. Oh, let's go to the right folder. In here, and in there. Okay. Cool. All right, we've got some ambience, and then we already have that music track in there. Let's bring that in over here. So import that. And put that in the same folder. Cool. Okay. Let's manage this a little bit. So I'm going to delete that. I'm going to make a new blank game object. Let's call this Audio Manager. Let's add the Audio Manager, Game Audio Manager. There we go. Great. We're on our road here, and so in order to work with this, we want to be providing audio sources, not clips, right? These are clips. Once you are playing them in the scene, then they are sources. And so for the Game Audio Manager to manage them, we want to make them sources. And so in here, I'll create an empty child. We'll call this music. And then I'll just copy and paste it. And in this first one here, I'll add the music. We do want that to play on awake, and we do want that one to loop. That's good for now. Then on the second one, this will be the ambience. And this one, we'll take the layered ambience and put it in there. We don't want that one to play on awake, but we do want it to loop when it does play. That's good. And then over here, well, let's just go with those two for now, and then we'll manage them. Okay, so that's pretty good. We've got the audio manager set up with everything that we need. Right now, these, because they're both, one of them set to play on awake, it would just play on awake. I'm going to go ahead and back this off because it's probably fairly loud. And so when we just hit play, we should get something to happen. That's happening. Make sure there's nothing conflicting with these previous examples. Cool. We're happening. That's good. We got both of these playing. Now we can manage them. One more step, actually. Let's come in here and create something new that we did not, the audio mixer. And so this is exactly what it sounds like. It allows us to dynamically change the levels of things in Unity. So if we right click here and create new audio mixer, and we'll call this main mixer. And now, if you double click on it, it opens up the audio mixer window, and we can use this. So I'm gonna write mixers, main mixer, groups. Let's call this new group music. Let's make another one. Let's call this ambience. There we go. And how do you actually route stuff to this? Because we hit play right now, we should see stuff going to main, I believe. Oh, that's right. This doesn't animate unless you tell it to. So click the edit and play mode. That allows you to control it. And then over here, audio source, we haven't done this before, you can route it to the mixer. So this can go here. So it goes to the music. This one should go to the ambience. There we go. And that's happening. So now, I think we should see our levels animating. Cool. Yeah, the ambience isn't playing. So we have this, and we put this in here. then this is live. Right, so you can see how this would be useful. Now, if there's a dialogue section, someone's talking, the music can turn down, and then they're talking, like I'm talking, and then the music turns back up when they're done. And then when they're talking again, it turns back down, and then it turns back up. And so you can do that, animating that. The manager can help us talk directly to this. Again, just like any mixer, I wouldn't push these levels above 0. Not above 0. You're gonna get into the danger of getting digital distortion at the top. It's gonna sound pretty grindy. Okay, so over here now we need to provide the audio mixer to the manager. The mixer to the manager, that's in place now. And let's give it our music. Let's give it our ambience. And then we can adjust some things. So, for instance here, let's go ahead and make a empty with or actually I'll just bring in the trigger zone. And let's scale this down a little bit. I'm going to put it right in front of my player so we can see what's happening. Good. Is trigger checked? And then on enter. So now let's talk to our manager here. And on the manager here, we have some options set up for different tracks. So we have stop, ambient, stop music. So when we walk into there, let's go ahead and say stop music. And let's turn on the ambience. So play let's play the ambience. Let's make sure we have the right name here. So the parameter name is going to be the major name. Let's just double check here. Come back over to documentation. We have a documentation page on this one now. So when we play with the audio clip, so let's do that. Over here, we'll put that into our parameter. Let's give it a shot. There we go. We stopped. And we stopped the music. Let's get our default fade duration here and make this a little bit longer. So this is one of the advantages of using the mixer here, is that we can fade things in and out without a whole bunch of complicated separate scripts for each thing. Is that we can sort of play and stop and then have it automatically fade as things come in and out. And so over here, we want to stop all audio. And stopping the music should give us this fade. Let's just double check. Under our music, fades music out over the duration. Yeah, files when stopped. And over here, play by name. And I think I may have updated this one. May have to re-update real quick. Cool. We're able to play and stop there. Let's just make sure this is doing everything correctly. I'm going to save once and bring that up. And let's look at a couple other things. So under here, if we look at our cameras, make sure we have our cameras here. Let me download the recent one. And what did I add there? Yeah, so under noise, I think I asked about shaking the camera. For handheld camera stuff, under the Cinemachine camera, under noise, we add this. Then you need a noise profile. If you click the little gear, then you get presets. Let's go to 60 shake. And now, if we were to run this, we should get some shaking happening. If we were to turn this off, yeah, that's fairly smooth in that we can turn that on and off. So we can sort of enable and disable that. If we look at this under our camera, and Cinemachine camera over here. let's make it a little bit more drastic. And here. So we can turn this on and off in our trigger zone. So here, when we go in, let's turn it on. So I'll come back to the Cinemachine camera and have this off. Then over here, talk to the Cinemachine camera. Basic multi-channel noise. We want to turn that on. And then when we leave this, we want to turn that off. So over here, put that one in. Select the same thing. And off. So on and off. Do we have any other functions there? Cinemachine is the Unity thing. It's the same. All right. So when we go in there, we should stop the music, start shaking the camera, but then when we leave, it'll turn off. Now we're shaking. Now we're fine. Now we're shaking. Now we're off. There we go. That's pretty jittery, but now we can, we're turning it on and off, so that's independent from the Cinemachine settings. So over here, frequency, how fast we're doing it. If we turn this down, and if we turn the amplitude up some more, this should be bigger, but slower. Now let's turn it back. Cinemachine camera. Let's go to wide angle mild. This is more wobbly, less realistic here, or less severe. Yeah, frequency faster, slower. Amplitude, how far we're going. So we don't want to go as far. Cool. Okay, so turning on and off our noise on the camera there. Let me save this and sub it out to make sure we're getting the audio fade. And open that again. Cool. Let me rebuild this for a second, bring this back in, double check our actual audio manager here. Because I think we'd be calling a slightly different function. Let's come in and grab that. So now if we look at it, this should totally represent what you're seeing. All right, let's get it set up so we can just march forward into the thing. Right there. And let's play this one. something that Audio Manager doesn't like here. Let's see what it says. Let's just make these line up here. Might need a change just to make sure that these automatically populate with what we have here, but let's see. Let's just make sure this is playing audio. All good. Okay, that was good. Let's just make sure that works. If it's outside and then gets triggered. A resume there isn't resuming. Let's see. No, all right. Those functions are just not triggering it the way we want to. Where this is going to fade in and out versus just sort of really abruptly stopping it. I mean, we can always just turn the objects on and off, but that ends up being fairly inelegant. So here would be playing. And we want them to actually fade in and out, which is what the manager can be doing for us, but the function doesn't seem to be quite triggered the way that we want. So let me see if I can look at that tomorrow morning. The other thing I wanted to draw to everyone's attention is playing the multiple sound files. So, for instance here, if we look at the other down audio, let's grab a couple other short things. I'll import them this way. Okay, let's go ahead and make another empty here. We're gonna call this audio trigger. I'll put the sound, action play sound on here. And so this allows us to play multiple clips. So if we come in here, hit plus, 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 and bring in a couple things. So here's the coin that we did. Some other random sound effects that should be short. Yeah, bamboo, and then something else. So here's the bamboo, and here is the jingle bell. So we got all three of those. And let's make sure they're going to the same thing. The mixer. We'll put them in the ambience layer for now. And in play mode, I think we should be able to hit the button to test. So we're randomly selecting between these every time we hit play. Hitting the button here, we should also be able to call that as a function or as a method. So I'm going to turn this off so we can hear it very clearly. Let's rig that up to the trigger zone here. Get rid of that one for a second. Bring in the audio trigger function, action play, play, and so every time we come in, we'll get a random sound. Bamboo, then the coin, then the bell. Just randomly triggering them in that order. In terms of the trigger zone, something else to consider here is depending on how long the sounds are, you could sort of use the on trigger stay to create like an ambience out of just individually triggered sounds that's randomly shifting. So if I turn that off and went to on trigger stay and talk to the audio trigger, and every second it would send out the play sound. They should overlap. I think we need to enable that. Yeah, you need to say yes, then the stay event. And it could be sparse or more dense, depending on how much you sent out the play message. So if this was faster, meaning every half second, and then we walked into this area, so this is using a function or method called play one shot. This means that the sounds can overlap. So when it starts playing one, when it gets the command to play the next one, it doesn't cut this one off. Rather, it continues and then these can overlap. If you have a lot of really long sounds, this is not great because then you would end up with many, many, many sounds going on at the same time. That's going to be a performance problem. But if they're short-ish to medium, then this would work to create this, randomly evolving thing here. This, won't repeat between these three. But in the audio mixer, if we look at where these are going, they should be going to, I sent them to the ambience thing. Let's do it properly here. If we go into this, yeah, let's give them their own track. So again, plus, call this SFX ambience, sort of a constructed ambience. And in here, let's make sure that's where this is going. So this audio trigger here is going to here now. Then over here, add, remove, add reverb. And again, we should have some presets here. The biggest thing to consider here is dry versus wet. So dry is sort of the unprocessed one. Let's turn that down. Turn up room in reverb. And so now this has a live effect on it. Turning up the room. And because it's just being, this on trigger stay within that area, if I walk out of this area, it continues to play the ones that had started, but then stops them. Cool. I thought of one other camera shake idea, right? So turning on and off the Cinemachine thing is probably my main suggestion. But if we went to the Cinemachine camera here, that right about there. The action animate, or actually, we have the action random motion. That's sort of like giving us separate individual places. I don't know if that's going to give us what we want. I think we would need a curve. So let's do the action animate. And so here, I might just create some wobble. Just control clicking to get some values, like so. Maybe store this one as a new one. And let's put it on the rotation X, max value 360, or not 360, 30. There we go. And offset enabled. And then if we were to simply assign some other ones to rotation X, rotation Y, and rotation Z, and just make them slightly different. And just moving these keyframes around. Maybe make the min value -30. Don't play on start. Don't ping pong. Don't start delay. Don't play. There we go. So this is on the camera there. Actually, let's just make sure it works on the camera. So I'll say play on start. And so now we should see a camera, pretty severe jostling when the game starts. Let's see. Yeah, cool. Now, if we want to get to it, let's say 0, 0. So we're getting back to the same thing. Now we want to do that at specific points. And so let's make it a little bit longer. And then let's not play on start. And then trigger it when we walk into that trigger zone. And so on the trigger zone, let's talk to the Cinemachine camera. And then play the transform animate once. There we go. Good. Problem is we're triggering it over and over again, which we don't want to do. Yeah, this doesn't. We don't want this to be here. We want this to be here. So we'll talk to this, and we'll bring this in here, and we'll play. And yeah. Now when we play, we should get one camera jostle. Yeah, there we go. Now it's totally in your hands in terms of the actual animation. So if we just moved these keyframes a little bit closer to this way so that we fade out a little bit more, probably take this Bezier and set it to free, or rather weighted here. There we go. That'll fade that out. And mess with the other ones a little bit, and grab these and move them over. Weighted. Drag that out. And then in here, again, move these over, maybe down. Over here, weighted. And that should fade out a little bit more. Let's make it a little bit longer, maybe 2 2 seconds. And so now, when we walk into that, we'll get this 2-second camera jostle that kind of fades. There we go. And when we walk back in, it should happen again. There we go. So it depends how long. If you just need like bumping the camera, I think this is probably your best bet. If you need to have like an extended period of like the camera getting shakier and shakier, then using the Cinemachine noise would be the way I would go. Okay. All right, so we got a bunch of different audio techniques there happening. We've got our sound, clean up a couple of those methods, but the basic functionality of the whole thing is there, which is what we want. Let's save this real quick. And so Punchy, the thing you said on Discord, first of all, the first Discord problem you have, that's working now? Like you're able to move around, do stuff?
Yeah.
Good. All right. Then the other thing was that the frame rate thing, right? And you were using not the frame rate on the character, but on the whole thing.
Yeah.
I think I nuked that. Let's bring it back in.
I put it in my video as a thing I was struggling with.
Because you saw it working in the editor, you didn't see it working in the build. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, let's see if we can figure out what's going on. Let's put this in here, new C# script. Let's put it in the game. Let's edit it real quick. Make sure the name of the class is exactly the same as the name of the file. That it's kind of loosey-goosey in terms of whether that's a breakage thing there, but that's the best practice. So let's make sure that that's the same. Here it is in the scene. Is it actually set to something we're going to see? Okay, so here's a situation where a little bit of scripting, right? Start is the function here that runs once when we start the game. This is the update. This runs every frame. Those are just there by default. In this case, we don't even need this one. We can just delete it. I just copied it into because it was in the template. So I'll delete that. Then we know that we can come in here and change this number. Let's say we wanted to put it in the editor. So what kind of number is this? There we go. And so we need a new public int. We'll call it application frame rate. And we'll say it should default to 12 semicolon. Now, in order to actually use that here, we need to replace the 15 with what? Right, because this is making this a public int. Here, let me show you what happens. Now, in the editor, once it recompiles, if we look at the script, watch over here on the right. Boom. Now, because it's a public int, we get something to adjust over here, so we don't have to go back in. But it's actually not totally hooked up yet, because we set this int here, but then we don't use that int anywhere down here. And we need to use this int that we named application frame rate. So copy that and replace 15 with that variable. So now when we start, it loads this variable. It looks up here to figure out what the variable value is. There we go. Let's see if that works. Here. Yep, definitely lower frame rate. Let's test it on the build. So file, build profiles, make sure that we're actually building this scene. So Windows scene list, open scene list, add open scene, the one that we're actually working in right now. Then come back to here and build. Remember, build into a clean folder, not in your project. So let's come back to here, and I'll just make a new folder. And we'll build into there. Let's see if we have any luck. Bum, 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 bum. Totally smooth. What would be different here? I tested it in a build at home and it worked. Let's see what is going on here. What would be overriding it? It's in the scene. And it's got this set. Let's double check the... Is there any reason this would not be running? I don't think so. There's two... No, it's clearly that scene. This is there. Let's double check the... Let's see. We might be able to go, let's see if going earlier helps us. So I've told you guys about start and update. There's actually one before start, I think before start. Yeah, so you start looking at any sort of code stuff, you'll see things like this. What order do things happen in? And so this is in the documentation. Yeah, so something is overriding it. And there's a chance if we set it earlier, that might help. So instead of running it in start, let's try awake, because awake is at the very beginning. See if that helps. So instead of this being start, we change it to awake. This needs to be totally spelled correctly, or else it will not work. Unfortunately, we need to build again, but it should build quick. We'll just build over the previous build. And still smooth. Something else to check here, quality settings. We have some settings here. All right, so I went into project settings and search for sync. Under quality, vsync count, I'm gonna say don't sync. See if that is our override. There we go. All right, we overrode it. So the checkbox of mystery here was edit, project settings. There's so many. I don't try to poke around here. Try to look for the thing, type in sync, under the quality tab. So Punchy, this one right here is what I would write down. vsync count, don't sync. Right. Then on the build, we didn't. We are not vertically syncing, and so then it's there. But if you're not using the frame limiting, frame downsampling thing, like, then don't worry about it. But yeah, otherwise it works in the editor, but not in the build. Again, another reason to build early to discover those things. Cool. So you're good. I mean, the scripts are working. You have the frame rate downsampled. Is there any other issues?
I explained it in the video where I wanted to make it kind of like procedural footsteps sounds, where like whenever the foot hits the ground, it will make a walk sound, because I tried to do it on my own, and that would go off sync.
Mm-hmm. How did you do it on your own? Did you use this?
I used like a walking sound effect though, and I tried to time it so that, because it's just 2 sound effects, and so I tried
Like
to
step?
Yeah, I tried to time that but very crudely, and it would just go off sync from there. And I tried to experiment and see like, okay, what about pause? And that didn't work. Instead of using the stop function when you stop walking, or the audio stop. So I would just need time to figure it out. I put it in the video though.
Oh, the thing we just did. Yeah, so the difficult part is your feet, the speed of your footsteps is actually a function of like what's happening in the animator, right? So getting it out of there might not be great, but we need to be able to control the rate at which something's playing. In this case, I would do this. How do we control the rate at which something is playing? We use the event sequence thing. So I'm going to make a new empty child, grab event sequence, and this will be footsteps, trigger, and probably 2 events would be fine, maybe 3.
Look on big monitor.
Gotta bump the thing. Is the counter events every so often for in that thing? Because we just want to be sending events sort of every duration. Yeah, this is going to be more work, so let's not use that one. let's use the other thing. So we just want to trigger this all the time, or at least while we're moving. So I'll make the input trigger. Make sure it's set to, that is on, and then make sure there's a box here. Trigger. And so the player's just kind of always triggering it, right? And so now the thing we were just doing to make that ambient soundscape. So on event stay, this is how fast the stays get triggered. So we'll leave it at 1 for now. Okay, and so what do we need to do here? We need to trigger sounds playing, like we were just talking about. So we need footsteps. Let's look at this. And so here, cutting the footsteps into individual pieces would be the way to go. Let's look at that. There's a reason there's no footsteps in the Foley folder. It's because there's a whole separate folder for Foley footsteps. I was like, that seems like a bizarre thing to be missing. Let's bring it in. Foley footsteps, extract all those. Let's look at this. Again, by duration. Length. Single step on cement. Let's look at that in Audition. Cool. I don't need to trim this one up. It's trimmed up. So we're good. Let's export this. Save as. Wave. Make sure that we come in here. Foot step. And again, mono is fine. Cool. We have a single footstep. Let's bring it in over here. Cool. Now, input trigger zone triggering at 1 second rate. Add the audio action play sound. And we bring in the footstep. Cool. Now, send it to a channel. Turn this off for now. So now, this is there. It should be just constantly triggering this footstep every second. And so if we save and hit play, oh, we didn't link it up. We have to say on trigger stay, talk to this, talk to the sound, and play. And so now we should just be playing it at a regular interval. Great. Now let's make it start when we move and stop when we don't. So our character up here, on start and stop, on start moving, we want to talk to this. And on stop moving, we want to turn this off. So on and off. Let's make sure it's off by default. So now we shouldn't have any sound, and then we start moving, there's sound. This didn't turn on. Well, this vent's not getting sent. Let's see here. Under console, just mixer things. Oh, I'm turning on and off the component. So the thing needs to be on. Let's try that again. Just we need the right thing to turn on and off here. So turning the sound on and off didn't quite give us what we want. Turning the input trigger zone on and off. Let's try turning the whole object on and off. So it's on, 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 on. Yes. So up here, instead of trying to talk to the components in a more complicated way, just turning the whole thing on and off. It's giving us what we want. In here then, because this gets triggered every 1 second, you could dial this into whatever is going to take to match the speed, the visual speed that you end up having in the animator. I mean, the frame rate is lowered anyway, but anyways, if this was like 0.2 here, now it'll be, I'm typing 0.2, it comes up 0.3, that's very weird. Anyway, now if we run it, awesome. So that turns this on and off. Up here, this is, oh, did I limit this in the code? Oh, I did. Okay. So that's the limit there. But even with one sound effect, because you're using this, you can make different, randomize the amount of volume change here. So if I make it like 0.1 and 1, we'll have louder ones and softer ones. And then also you could take 1 and give it a little bit of pitch change, right? Doing too much of this is going to sound terrible. Doing a little bit might help it give some variety. Even this might be too much. Let's see. Is there any way to override that? I mean, we could. That's actually something you could change in the script real easy. I put that in there to keep people from triggering it too fast. Awesome. Now we're getting volume change per footstep and a little bit of pitch change. And if you wanted multiple footsteps now, that's just a matter of loading them into here. Right, so let's look at one that's not quite so tuka, 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 tuka. What about step, 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 step? Hard sole run between surfaces. What does that look like? All these people are wearing like heeled shoes. I want something a little bit more carpet. There we go. Step, 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 step. The problem with playing this whole thing is that, yeah, I mean, having it, changing the tempo is going to be difficult. But if we have individual steps, then you can change the tempo. So you could grab just a tiny part of it, like so. And there is a save selection as, which allows you to export just one sound file. And so mono, yes, send it to the right folder. Let's just send it to the Unity folder. There we go. We're going to call this step 1. Then grab another one, edit, or file, save selection as. Grab one more. And save selection as. Now, I just put those directly in the folder. They should be right in here. Let's go back to our footsteps. Let's get rid of this hokey one. Put this one in there, step 1. Actually, plus, plus, plus. Here's step 1, step 2, step 3. Now they'll be randomly triggered in order. Or that doesn't make any sense. They'll be randomly triggered. We get the variation here. They're happening faster. And now let's do it again. Shoulders. Nice. Okay, so that seems like it's like right at the threshold where it might not be fast enough, and it won't let you make this lower than 0.3. I'm going to go to the script, right click, and edit script. So, fortunately, this is right up here. Oh, it should be at the top. Oh, right here on validate. So this, have you taken 151 yet?
Currently in 151.
Okay, so you tell me what this means.
If it's less, if the interval is less than 0.3, then it will force itself to be 0.3.
So you get it. You might need it to be lower than 0.3, and so you just need to make both these numbers smaller. I might say 0.1 and 0.1. And then save, right? You know that part from 151, right? If you don't save the script, it doesn't update in Unity. Now, you'll still probably get the message up here because we didn't change the message, but now you should be able to change that. Over here, over here. Now we can put it at 0.1. We should be able to get some fast footsteps. And then there isn't a delay on this, right? Play sound. Mixer, main. Make sure this isn't going to a weird thing. Get out of the store. I forget if I put a limit on this. I don't think I did. Audio clips, mixer, volume, pitch. Yeah, so the volume here, some of them may just be very, very quiet. Let's make it back to so that's really, kind of cartoony fast. 0.2, 0.9. The pitch may be speeding up and slowing them down a little bit. Cool. So the other thing to take note of is that you need to make sure that the audio doesn't have a whole bunch of space before it gets triggered. So this one's a little bit off. It's a little bit delayed. I would clean that up. Maybe this one needs a little bit of cleaning up there. But that does it, right? So input trigger zone, essentially always getting triggered because it's just sitting there on top of the character like this. And then we're just turning it on and off when we move. So down here, not the components, just the entire game object. Yeah, some other people might want to use that in terms of putting the footsteps together. So then, as long as you're not changing the speed at which you're running the walk cycle, you should be able to, have one that works with the other one there. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
And it just sits there right below the character. If you load multiple files here, I would probably just keep this at 1 to make sure the timing's not getting affected too severely and make it a little bit more consistent. Awesome. That works great. And Arlinka asked about camera shake. Finch, the problem you had when I walked in, was that because of the character animation or the character UVs? Finch, when I walked in, were you having an issue with the UVs or the animation?
I can't get the Mixamo animations to work.
If you drag the FBX that you downloaded from Blender or from Mixamo into Blender, does it play? Because Blender plays it just on default. And so then we can narrow it down. Where is it the problem with what came down from Mixamo, or is it a problem in Unity? The other thing to point out here, who was it? Colette had that situation with the UVs not being correct for the character that she painted in Painter. And this was an instance where I believe this character was in Substance Modeler, and then it went to Substance Painter. All right, so this is Modeler. And then when it went to Painter, Colette used the automatic UV in Substance Painter. And then she took the mess out of Modeler and put it into Mixamo. And so the problem there was like this one got animated and this one got painted. But where did the UVs happen? They happened here. So the UVs, which were pretty non-existent, but they were something that got animated. When these got combined, then you had this happening. So the solution here is to take the mesh out of Substance Painter into Mixamo. So because that will have the correct UVs. And how do you get the mesh out of Substance Painter? You can use the Substance Painter export mesh command. And so if you load Substance Painter here, and let me just load some default thing. How about the frog? Okay. Then, hold on, let me just finish this thought. Here, file, we've been just doing export textures, but there is an export mesh. And so here, keep this and export, and it should set to, you want to set it to FBX because that's what you're going to send up to Mixamo. And then here under, So it exported the mesh, and that diagram I was just discussing, that works. And so the FBX that comes out of here, so then essentially the workflow is Substance Painter to Mixamo, then to Unity. Right, so don't sidestep. That was the problem. Substance Modeler, Colette sort of skipped this one to here, and then went this one to here, whereas what you should do is just go straight from each one. So Substance Modeler to Painter, Painter export the mesh into Mixamo, then that into Unity. Because you're automatically generating the UVs in Painter. Back to here. So yeah, what I just told Finch, Mixamo wasn't working. First thing, check Mixamo, and you can do that just by dragging it into Blender, and then just hit play, and you should see it play. Blender will play it automatically. So if they play there, then here, right? So you have the when you bring it into Unity, we should have this, where if you unfold, you see multiple things, at least a mesh, a clip.
Yeah.
You see that, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So then, in the clip itself, in the asset, making sure loop time is checked and set apply. Then, if we drag this in, if we hit play, nothing will happen. Now, we unfold here. The part that's not quite consistent for every Mixamo character is where to put the animation. Because there's no animator yet, but you need to make sure that the top of the animation is the same as what you have downloaded. And so this is running. Here it is, running. And the clip, can we look at the clip here? If I double check the clip. Yeah, okay. So this can be somewhat useful in that the top of the clip is the hips. So in here, let's make sure that we drag this thing onto the hips. Then that should create an animator. Then we see if that plays. It's running. Didn't work on the hips. Let me try it up at the very top. So here to the top of the hierarchy. Double checking that I erased the animator that was created previously. That's there. Let's see if it plays now. There, it does. So in that case, taking it to the top of the hierarchy, not here. So it does seem inconsistent. I wish I had something better to tell you there. I would try this first, then that. It seems to have a slightly different, depending if you're using one of the characters there or if you uploaded your own character, it seems to get different results there. Also, they have different, like this, the robot thing is actually 2 meshes. That may have something to do with it. But now that's playing. Now, once that's going, I don't need to do that again, right? like we discussed before. You understand that part, Finch, right? Once you have one of them good, then it's a matter of just dragging the other animations into the existing animator in order to update that.
Yeah, I'm just confused because no matter what I do, it doesn't work. I don't understand. I don't know.
Okay, let me look at yours there. But make sure no one else has any other questions here. I don't think we do. Discord. Okay. Let me save this. Let me turn this off. Cool. And everybody, we're working towards having a build. Give it to everybody else. Once again, when you upload it to Google Drive, please say anyone with link. So I put this, not Giggle Drive, that's totally different. Don't go to Giggle Drive. I don't even know what's on there. Right, so if you right click, not the form, how about this thing? Here, share. Remember, this is going to be a zip file, and you need to make sure that this says anyone with link so that everybody else can download and play, test your game. Okay, great. These will be fun coming in here. And so this week, finishing things up, your questions on Wednesday, and then playtesting everybody else's stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I'll put the deadline for playtesting maybe on Saturday or so everyone has time to actually incorporate that feedback into next week's work as opposed to the whole thing. Just to sort of spread it out for everybody. So that would, I think, be good. Maybe, yeah, Saturday night. That still gives everybody time to work for the following Tuesday. But